With Lloydminster Healthcare, we could probably spend all afternoon here if you guys really want. But just for today, I thought I'd focus on Project Sunrise specifically. So, as an in brief on the foundation, our role within this city is to enhance and innovate Lloydminster Healthcare. That means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but essentially the baseline healthcare that is provided that you and I are expecting with our healthcare dollars. That's what the provincial governments are in charge of. The nice to have things above and beyond. That's what the foundation is here to ask the question, what the community believes is high enough priority to support. So with that, one of the most pressing needs right now for our community that we've discovered is better mental health support, both established within the healthcare setting and just abroad in the community at large. Obviously the Lloyd Needs Assessment that we received the same time each of you did expressed that, with some localized stats, and we've seen the Canadian numbers as well. So what I'm here today to discuss with you is, I guess, our solution to that, both in the short term and right away. So the ultimate goal is to become a community with first-rate mental health support as a rural city. So our hospital is classified as regional. We're obviously not an urban tertiary center, but more of a regional, what can we solve here before we pass it on. Two main areas of focus, as I highlighted. The biggest one is the bottom one, the expansion of local mental health healthcare supports, most notably dedicated beds somewhere in the community. The second one, the first point, build up prevention and resiliency in the community at large with a wide variety of agencies. Our timeline, so in 2016 we received obviously a kickoff donation from Richard and Barb Klinger, very generous, and that's what helped us identify that this was a priority. In fall of 2017 we launched Project Sunrise at our gala and initiated the first phase of funding, which partnered with you guys, pulled off the Lloydminster Mental Health Needs Assessment. And then essentially a few months later in the winter of 2018, we received the report with alarming figures, put together a steering committee to get going. In spring of 2018, we rolled out the second phase of funding, and then fall 2018, now winter of 2019. Sitting here after a very strong year of fundraising, an additional funding requests with focus on long-term plans. So we've said, here's some things we want to do in the short term. We now have the funds raised to pull off a lot of that, and now we're saying what else can we do in the meantime. So over the summer and fall of 2018, this actually started with the Arm of Wilton, and then the Arm of Britannia, and then the County of Vermilion River. So we've chatted with each municipal body in the rural setting that borders on Lloydminster, and now I guess the future timeline, if I were to add another slide, it would be chat with the City of Lloydminster, confirm their interest, and then connect back with the provincial government. So I'm essentially here today with visiting the City of Lloydminster as the last and probably most important piece of the municipal partnership. Lloyd Needs mental health figures, just to breeze over these, I know you guys have seen these. 32.29%, 1 in 3 personally impacted by a mental health issue, and then another 46% had family or close friends impacted. So some staggering numbers, almost 80% of Lloydminster citizens. Some addictions specific numbers highlighted in there as well. Here's what the care pathway looks like in a nutshell. It's been, I'm a fundraiser marketer, so this is like 2 years of research compiled on one slide. Community health, so that's emotional resiliency and just building up the ability to talk about these things openly, stigma busting. That's what we're getting at with community health. Social support of your family and friends, also your own self-care practices. So general education there. As it escalates and gets to that yellow phase, mental health concerns, that's where you're starting to see a formal counselor, somebody who's trained in mental health and addiction specifically. There's an alarming wait time there for the paid-for counseling, roughly 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how serious your condition is. Of course, you can skip the wait line with private counselors, psychologists, this psychiatrist, and then they would obviously prescribe to the pharmacy for medication. That is kind of the quarterback within the established healthcare setting. Your family physician and also your spiritual leader are going to support you on your journey, as well as peer support again. As it escalates even further and you're in crisis, that's where you're in the ER because your family doesn't know where else to take you. You might get shipped off to North Battleford or Ponoka for short-term stabilization. If it's more serious and you need long-term treatment, you would go across town in Battleford to the SAS Hospital or across the hallway to another part of the facility within Ponoka. Once you've had time there, then you essentially move along to the continuing care portion of the healthcare setting. That's similar to senior care. So you need to be in a formal facility like the Live Young Center. Can they support you out in the community along with home care? You obviously have regular counseling, check-ins with your psychiatrist and your family doctor as well. On the addiction side, very similar, just breeze over it, but you show up in the ER for one reason or another, and the idea is you immediately get into detox, you immediately get into a publicly funded treatment bed, and then after treatment you're back into your community and receiving counseling time, regular psychiatrist visits, and your addiction problems are magically solved. Obviously, in theory that's great. In practice, it doesn't always work out that way. I can touch on that in the discussion period if you guys wish. The short-term plan, as I touched on, invest into tangible, immediate initiatives that strengthen the front half of the care pathway. So for mental health, that's community health, and then the emerging mental health concerns, private counseling time, public counselor time, etc. On the addictions front, that's community health. You know, you're in crisis, and then you need treatment right away. How can we do some things immediately on that front? Some of the immediate initiatives we're working on, there's a whole pile of them there. Obviously, the school resource officer in partnership with you guys has been a humongous success so far. The other one to highlight there is the startup funding for residents in recovery. This time last year, we were looking at both those initiatives, and we've been incredibly happy with how they went. Everything else listed there is supports along the way. So PD for mental health and addiction, frontline staff, getting the ER staff up to snuff on how to handle mental health patients, as well as frontline workers across the community, evening and weekend drop-in counseling at the walk-in clinic, because these mental health crises don't always happen Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Some other wins along the way, we thought it was pretty simple to buy LidminsterMentalHealth.ca and .com, and just, you know, here's where you go if you have an addiction problem, here's where you go if you're youth suffering from depression, here's where you go if you're a senior suffering from dementia, etc. There really isn't a formalized avenue for that, so we treated that fairly straightforward. Additional funded beds at Thorpe Recovery as well. Our long-term plan, and this is what I'm here to discuss with you guys today, is to kickstart local short-term stabilization beds that become the headquarters of mental health care in the community. There's obviously a facility just down the road. If there's room in the hospital, we'll happily put it in the hospital. They've told us there isn't. In the meantime, there's a solution down the road at the Thorpe Recovery Center, which is sitting at most maybe 30 out of 66 units on a really busy time. So they have a completely empty wing that we've had some really good discussions about turning that into a short-term mental health stabilization unit. Some funding questions there, and we're hoping in the meantime, with the city's support as well as the surrounding municipalities, we could fund that as a short-term solution, and then just like the SRO officer, how you guys took over that funding in the long term, the same thing would happen at a provincial level. So mental health stabilization beds, easily the crown jewel of Project Sunrise. As well as that, there's some telehealth things we can do to connect to psychiatrists, specialists in the nearby cities without having to drive there. And then long-term support, obviously the continued PD, the continued recruitment of mental health professionals, ongoing maintenance and sponsorship of community events, etc. There's also been discussion in that very last bullet about a mental health crisis intervention squad and what that would look like. So there's a lot here, obviously. To simplify the steps to mental health stabilization beds, confirm the operating model with the actual facility owner, which is Thorpe. Confirm short-term funding, which is where we come in. Confirm the psychiatric support, which has been done. They've told us they'd be on site if we can make it happen. Communicate with the Saskatchewan and Alberta healthcare ministers and then with the health authorities, so you get the provincial political leaders on board as well as the health authority at the same time. We would cover some renovations, hiring, and training to get it up to snuff. We would launch it, and then the long-term funding would take over from Alberta and Saskatchewan. Sounds simple and straightforward, and hopefully it is. So again, our overall plan, just to conclude, short-term invest in tangible immediate initiatives that people are doing great work on across the community, actually including the FCSS folks in your offices. And then also work on a long-term plan, and that's where the advocacy and fundraising really comes in. Usually we're talking about, building a new hospital from scratch, $20 million, etc. In this case, we have a problem, and then we have a solution already built. We just need to basically retrofit it from an addiction ward to a mental health ward, get some PD and staffing in place, and then away we go. So the fundraising side, the dollars and cents. This is obviously napkin math, but basically, Total funds needed, we estimate at $2 million. We plan to spend about $1 million on short-term funds, and then the long-term funding. So any money that we designate for long-term funding of those stabilization beds, that sits in an endowment, and we don't touch it until we get those beds. So if the health authority says, actually, we have a better idea besides Thorpe, let's build a new hospital, we would say, great, we're going to repurpose that endowment towards that. We need $2 million, and we just crossed the $1 million mark at Christmas, so we're very excited. We do have an ask of you guys today. So the county and the RM of Wilton and the RM of Britannia, the RM of Wilton and the county have each committed $150,000 over 3 years, so $50,000 a year. Britannia committed $50,000 for the next 2 years, and they're at 100. And they said, when you have a more formal plan, please come back to us. So between those three organizations, we're at $400,000. From the city of Lloydminster, our ambitious ask is obviously that you top us up at that $2 million pledge by giving us $1 million today. We'll cash the check and walk out and be done. I understand things don't happen quite like that. So, you know, in lieu of council terms and being able to do this over multiple years, we are hoping you can give us $1 million over, you know, whether it's 6 years, 5 years, or 10 years. But ultimately, that's what we're asking is a pledge of $1 million. So that is my presentation, and I guess a comedic way to close it off. Crisis intervention team, we'll see you in 80 days. Just a crack at the wait times.
Thank you, Malcolm. Appreciate the cartoon. Anyone that's been following the mental health crisis that we're experiencing in our community, as any other community, it's been challenging for people that are looking for services. At this time, I'll ask council for questions, comments. Councilor Button.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, Malcolm. How are you finding people are accessing the services that are available now? Of course, one of the biggest stigmas with mental health is the fact that people don't come forward in time or at all. So there's great things here about wanting to try and help those in need. But if it gets up and running, what's the plan on engagement? Because that's going to be, I think, one of the toughest pieces of this whole puzzle. Having the service is one thing, getting people to the service is another.
So I'm not sure specifically what you're asking there, but
just how, if this all goes forward, what's the plan on actually having people engage in the service that's going to become available should this all move forward?
That hasn't come up as an issue for us, to be honest. The psychiatrists in the hospitals have told us, you know, we're not equipped to deal with this, but the wait times are tremendous, and there's probably many more people than you realize who are being shipped out of the community to battle for Anoka. So I know that the provincial health authorities will have the stats on that of what they think the demand is. They've done studies that have said we need a 10-bed mental health unit in Lloydminster somewhere. Others have said maybe 7 is enough. If you hire a nurse, that's 1 nurse per 3 beds, so maybe you need 6, maybe you need 9. So we've forecasted where it's legible at 6 or 7 beds, or if the demand really is there, it's 10. I don't see the need to repurpose this, quite honestly. I see that probably once the local resources are here, we'll get referrals from Lloydminster and the surrounding county and RMs. And once again, there will be a wait list.
Yeah, I've taken my fair share of trips professionally to those facilities, and the people that I've seen are in real crisis. There's no doubt about it. My question, I guess, still remains: what's the preventative piece? How do people that don't? I would love to see a community where people felt comfortable enough to get that help, ask for that help, find that help somewhere before they end up in the ER. Is there something locally that prevents that whole process? Because those people are so stressed by the time that even happens. Is there a piece of this that makes it feasible for someone to come forward and say, I need help? That's the facilitation piece that I was kind of looking for, I guess.
Yeah, so, and again, I only have 15 minutes, but if you go back to this slide right here, that is kind of the high-level version of what you just discussed. So there's 2 parts of the care pathway. There's that community health, which is exactly what you're referring to. And all of those logos you see along the bottom, including both the health authorities, they're usually more willing to pay for another social worker to do the awareness, prevention, promotion, education, resiliency training, because it's a lot cheaper than paying for a facility in beds, right? So that work is happening, and I know you guys are aware of the work being done in schools, because a lot of you have kids and you fund the school resource officer. That work is starting to happen, and we're supporting that. We're saying there's people doing good work, we're fundraisers, we're just going to fund those people to continue doing that. But we're also saying we're not really addressing the problem completely if we just say we're going to focus on prevention as a community of Lloydminster, and then just be okay with somebody waiting 6 hours in the ER room to see a psychiatrist on call, and then not actually deal with the issue when they walk out, or having an empty facility at Thorpe with addictions professionals there on site, but then not having people in our community we know in the hundreds suffering from addictions, we're able to access that. So I think as a foundation, we didn't want to say, let's throw 100 grand, 200 grand at the prevention side of this, and then walk away and say we're done. The needs in the community, it's very obvious there's some sort of need for mental health stabilization beds. Psychiatrists locally would much rather have that person overnight with a psych nurse they know and trust monitoring them, somebody they can visit themselves instead of referring to another psychiatrist, and then when that person leaves Battleford or Pinoka, they lose that connection back in the community and you see them in the ER again. These things are happening. I'm sure that those people will lose some of them along their way of that care pathway. Some will make it through. It's just a question if it's a priority worth addressing as a community.
Yeah, I'm not so focused on the preventative funding to that piece of it. It's then when I've addressed these people in the professional capacity, it is, how did you get to this point? Where did you go?
Exactly.
How could, and 90% plus of the people that I've discussed this with had no idea of the facilities, the helps, all the logos listed on the bottom. They couldn't name one of them, right? So my immediate concern is getting that out there, right? There's nothing wrong with any of what you're saying and what you're doing here, not at all. But that's my biggest stumbling point, is that the people that need these services the most are A, scared to, B, don't know how to access those services. And that, I think, is a really key factor.
Yeah, I don't know if there's room for me to comment, or if that's just in closing, but I think we've seen that in spades, and I'm assuming on the first responder side, they don't know what next week at 2 o'clock at this address means. They don't think like that. So the residents in recovery on the addiction side of things, we've been really happy with the preventative work they've been doing in the community, because that person's an advocate. They say, you need to see this doctor actually right now before you leave these doors, and this counselor and this social worker, they're going to plug you in. You're going to stay here in a sober living residence until a bed opens up for you, and then we're going to deliver you to it, and then you're going to go through it, and then you're going to live in sober housing for $32 a day, just as taxpayers. Versus having that person show up again and again on the ambulatory call, and then in the ER for another $1,400 a night to the taxpayer, because these things are cost efficient. It's a different budget. So an acute hospital will leave millions of dollars on a hospital bed for a mental health patient, when a mental health facility would be able to solve that for like 25% of the cost. It's just crazy, but we need to prove to these people that it's feasible.
Councillor Torson.
I just had a couple questions. First is, so on the $1 million, is that on the capital or the operating side?
It's the $1 million ask from you, or yeah. So it's actually up to you guys. The long-term stabilization beds is basically what we're thinking here. So if you gave us $1 million today, we would combine it with the other $1 million we have. We'd spend half of it right away on initiatives in the community, and then the other half of it would go towards basically repurposing the Thorpe and funding its operations for a year.
Okay. The other question, I think you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do in your role right now. However, I'm curious, where does the provincial responsibility end and the municipality's responsibility begin? I understand some of the other partners have made the choice to donate into this, but in terms of what our lane is and the ways we can continue on with helping with the Project Sunrise or the Lloyd Community Needs Assessment, I think we've taken some steps already in some of those things. Not huge steps, but steps nonetheless. I'm just curious, where do you believe that the province's role in this ends and ours begins, because I think we're potentially getting into some tricky waters in terms of whose tax dollars at what level is it supposed to be happening in terms of the levels of government.
Yeah, great question. The short answer is the municipal government has no responsibility to do anything for healthcare, and the provincial government is 100% in charge of providing the basics, which they are today. So if we approach them about this, they would say money's tight right now, as I'm sure it is for everybody. But we're doing a good enough job of this as it is. Like, we have a facility in the region in Battleford and Anoka. So the short answer is us as a community, not just the city of Lloydminster, but as a community, if this isn't a high enough priority, that's fine. Like, we can invest in some short-term stuff and take care of the community at large piece. I think the opportunity here is, considering that the solution is already built, is to be a little bit more receptive to, we can house this facility right in our community. Lloydminster as a community, I know you guys are more than aware of this in all industries, but especially in healthcare, this stuff gets pieced out all day long to places like Battleford and Camrose because we're a Black conventional community. So for the local donors, and that includes you guys, that's how you'll be treated in this, you have an opportunity to kickstart something with a very small investment that's going to turn into basically $1 million a year from either provincial authority. So it'll cost about $1 million a year to run Thorpe, $300 a bed to run the mental health side of Thorpe, $300 a bed, 10 units, 365 days. The hope is we can get a good deal from them along with rentals. We cover the first year plus the rental costs, and then after that, both provinces take over at $500,000 each. In the provincial budget, that's not a big ask. I think for the provincial governments, what we're seeing more and more is they're downloading this stuff onto the local municipal governments and the local foundations. So if we want a new hospital tomorrow, their expectation is that the community fund raises 20%. That's the expectation. So the municipal government can chip in on that 20% or leave it up to the donors privately, but the province, I think, has said, wait in line like everybody else or skip the wait list.
Sorry, I got a follow-up for that. Thank you. Yeah, and part of me asking about capital versus operating was in regards to this 20% number. So, So do we really need to raise $1 million on the capital side, or do we really only need to raise $200,000?
So
only the 20% figure, and then go to them with our proposal.
Typically you're correct in that, but the facility itself is basically at decision time. So if we rely on provincial budget timelines and say we'll pay for the brick and mortar renovations and then hand this off to you, I hope they come through for the first year, but I have a feeling it's going to take some time, and Thorpe will say we need to move on. So there is a bit of a time crunch on this one more than usual.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Councilor Baker.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councilor Thorson's first question about the two provinces. There are logos on your report here. And I guess I was going to ask, I think I got part of the question, where do they sit for contribution? Like, I've heard about the mental health issues in our city for a long time. On the provinces, what have they really done? They're responsible. I realize we have no responsibility legally, but that's beside the point. But what have the provinces really done for this region? And I mean, mental health, not many of us understand it, and I'm one of them. But we all know somebody that has mental health problems is diagnosed by professionals. The Thorpe Center was built with a lot of local money, and I understand the provinces, and I'm just asking, don't do a lot to fund that, and it's just about empty. Now, these are facts. These are just what I hear. So, how do we keep this going if we get it started and the provinces aren't at the table? Like, every time I drive by that Thorpe Center, I wonder what's going on out there. Because it's pretty well, like, I've been out there, not for years, but it was pretty well empty. And I thought, how many million invested? Sitting there and nothing happened. So where are we with the two provinces to get that place up and running? Along with the many other things you need. Because we can put in seed money, I guess, if that's what the community wants to do. That isn't an argument, it's just a fact. And how do we keep these things going? You know, and you would have a better handle what your plan is to do that than I would. But I really worry about what I haven't seen from the two provinces over the last 30 to 40 years in this community. And how do we get them there?
So there's a few things. First off, I think Thorpe might be due for a conversation with you guys about their funding model on the addiction side. Not to speak for them, but I believe their model was predicated the entire time on that private funding being there. That isn't there right now. The public funding, I don't think there was any promise from either province except for on the youth wing, but there was no promise of beyond 2 publicly funded treatment beds on the Saskatchewan side and 4 from the Alberta side. So they're doing work just on the addictions wing to get that number up. And I think the provinces are hearing that. They have no choice to look away. There's all sorts of addictions crises in both provinces, right? So that conversation's happening. Meanwhile, we have this conversation on the other side of the building, this totally unused space completely. They use it for intensives sometimes. They're already paying admin staff. They already have nurses monitoring the detox center for the couple of people who are there. We're saying it won't take much more. The psychiatrist's bill is already paid by the provinces, like they just build a ministry, right? So him visiting the Thorpe won't cost the Thorpe money either. So this is actually, like, it makes a lot of sense to us. Your comment about the logo, Sask Health Authority and Alberta Health Services, so those are the operators, and they get funding from a completely different organization, which is the Ministry of Health, which is in both provinces, which is run by politicians. So if we can make the model make sense for the people that are operating, and the people on the front line here in Lloydminster who work for those organizations have told us personally that this makes sense, and you talk to your MLAs who have also told us this makes sense. We just need to say, you have a year runway, make it work in your budgets, find $500,000 each for us, and away we go. People have unofficially said, I think maybe like 5th, 6th, 7th time maximum, can you find a way to fund this? And they quietly say, okay, just give me some time. So advocacy is going to get us there, and local dollars to get it up and running.
Thank you, Yours.
Councillor Fedder.
Yeah, I think that it truly is a win-win. There's no question about it. I mean, Thorpe's been in a little trouble out there since day one. So I think that it is it's a wonderful fit. And as you mentioned, with all the staff and everything that can be shared, I was very surprised. I didn't realize a number of years ago until I was on a hospital committee how serious mental health was and how widespread it was. And it's just incredible out there. So. Yeah, I think we need it for the community. It's a little disappointing with the provincial government, I think, in a lot of ways where they're not keeping up their side of the bargain. But as a community, I guess sometimes we've got to do what we think is best for us. So I think it's a great match, and hopefully something can be done there.
Yeah, and they would argue that point and say they are doing their part, right? And the facilities nearby in Pinoka, just a few minutes drive, but obviously we don't think it's good enough. And the thing about Thorpe is it's a tremendous asset, both for Alberta and Saskatchewan. I don't think the governments totally understand how the non-profit, private addiction recovery model quite looks yet. Like, I think they're still figuring that out, but in the meantime, we've got a great facility in Lloydminster, like the pride of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And I think we just need some help repurposing it and get it up and going.
So what will the cost be on repurposing that?
They've told us it'd be $1 million. We think, between that, it'd be $1 million a year to run it and $1 million to renovate it. That's not taking into account the efficiencies of, they already have staff running the other side of the building. We think we can get it down to 1.5, and then maybe we only spend 500 on the short-term side and 1.5 on the facility. That's really the crown jewel of this is mental health stabilization beds. Everything else, the school resource officers, residents in recovery, all supports that. But once we get those stabilization beds, the psych nurses and the psychiatrists in place, the mental health problems in this city will go way down because there's a quarterback that's taking care of everything. There's just no central hub right now.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Well, I'll round off the conversation. I think that appreciate very much welcome the presentation and the request. Certainly, $1 million for the foundation's information represents a 5% tax increase across the entire city for 1 year for taxpayers. I think that's a message that I want to just make sure we get back to the foundation from that perspective. We might need to help recruit you to find funding from other funding partners because you're doing better than we are from that perspective. The challenge I see personally as my concern, I think it was expressed a little bit around this table, is the slippery slope that scares me because you and I and some other folks have traveled, we've met with some of the health officials, and we're not done meeting, and I'll continue to support you in every endeavor. And I do chat with I've had a chance to chat with the ministers of health and rural health in Saskatchewan. They keep coming to visit, but they haven't made it here. They've broken 2 or 3 promises. And my concern is if we do put out the money, I'm scared that it's going to be easy for them to say, well, they did it before. I see how easy it will be to slip it into the budget. I'm afraid on the other side how easy it will be to oversee it and just say, oh, they made it work, they'll find the money, because once it's up and running, well, they found the money the first time, and that's a concern I have personally. To put that back to our taxpayers, I think that will be challenged. I would say I really believe that would be the case. But nonetheless, everything you've said is absolutely right. I agree with you 100%. There is a need. I think everyone saw that need. The relationship that we've had with the Health Foundation is tremendous. We started with the health assessment and we up to where we're at today. Working thanks to the Health Foundation, we did get the student resource officers in place in the city. We'll absorb that cost. We'll continue to be part of FCSS and work with all the organizations. So I guess that certainly you can appreciate that. I'm sure the foundation can. It's a big ask for the city. And I guess that if you so wish to bring it back, I can pretty much say that, as you know, our budget has been set for this year. I'm just speaking maybe out of turn, but from the perspective that anything can be looked at, but it's certainly something the city hadn't prepared for and this was not budgeted for. So that's one of the challenges, and we don't have $1 million slush fund that I know of. The city manager not getting that nod of approval. He doesn't allow me to have those things on this council, which is a good thing. So from that perspective, appreciate the presentation. Thank you very much for the time and the effort and work you folks are doing. I know the foundation, you've got some tremendous, without the cleaners to start this would have never happened, I don't believe. And thank you to them very much and all the other supporters, and we'll continue to be there. The question is, I guess, to what extent.
Thank you very much, Mayor Albers, for your commitment to supporting us, and also to this entire council for supporting us in this region. Appreciate the time today, and look forward to talking to everyone.
Thank you very much, Robert. Moving on to agenda item number 5, administrative presentations. I'll look to the city manager.
Good afternoon, Your Worship Council. To present 2019 engineering capital infrastructure projects, I'll ask Amy Rogers for our engineering team to come forward.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
I trust you all had a good family day weekend. So before you is an information report associated with the engineering capital infrastructure projects for 2019. The topic is to provide the committee with an update regarding engineering capital infrastructure projects and information pertaining to the services which will be procured to assist with project delivery. In preparation for the design and construction of the 2019 engineering capital infrastructure projects, administration has compiled a list of programs where either a consultant or a contractor or both will need to be procured to provide services to assist with the successful completion of the programs. Administration will be completing some capital infrastructure projects using in-house personnel, while larger or more complex programs will require the assistance of consultant services. The programs to be completed in 2019 range from traffic flow assessments and municipal infrastructure upgrades to storm channel improvements. An aggressive approach will be required of administration to procure and administer the projects to ensure the timely delivery of the services. Once again, the objective of this was to provide the committee with pertinent information and an overview of the required services needed to assist administration in an effort to successfully complete engineering capital infrastructure projects. The approved capital budgets associated with the programs will be managed according to the services required to fulfill the program's intent. Supplemental services will be procured according to the procurement and purchasing policy, with the scope of services being tailored to ensure budget constraints are acknowledged and maintained. So, as an attachment to this information report, we've prepared an engineering capital infrastructure update dated February 19, 2019 for GPC committee meeting. And this will become the starting point for future upgrades as we move through the construction season into 2019 to keep the mayor and council and the City of Lloydminster residents up to date with where we're at on our engineering capital infrastructure programs. As an engineer, I can sit here and talk about these programs in great detail or technical background all afternoon, but we will just touch on some of the highlights and then I will turn it over for questions. So in 2019, we do have drainage channel improvements, and that would be in our northwest drainage channel. We have east storm channel rehabilitation, and that's up by the wastewater treatment facility and a control structure. We have the street rehabilitation, which is 40th Avenue between 12th Street and south of 41 Street. We have the sanitary main replacement program, which is on 45th Avenue between 44th Street and 46th Street. We have additional drainage channel improvements on our east drainage channel between Lake J and Lake K. We have the leachate management system. We have traffic signal network timing and configuration. Again, we have more drainage improvements. Sorry, I might have missed one there. So we have our, my apologies, northwest drainage, which is currently ongoing right now. We have east drainage channel, and then we have our control structure, which is up at the wastewater treatment facility. We have Neely Edmonds storm system improvements, which is the final control structure, which is control structure number 5.
I just have a quick question I might declare. Are any of these currently being procured like right now, where the review process for consulting services is happening right now?
Yes.
I'm going to declare.
Okay.
Yeah, I will anyway.
Thanks, Doctor.
Yeah, thanks.
Please.
We have the 2019 street improvement program, 2019 water and sewer replacement program. We have a traffic signal installation for the commercial development, which is at the Sobeys Best Buy corner and 75th Avenue.
Can I ask about that one quick right now? What's the change that's anticipated there? Because it's already got traffic structure there, right? Or is it at the corner? There's further south.
So further at the intersection of 44th Street and 75th Avenue, there is existing traffic signals there. They are in operation. But this will be moving south along 75th Avenue to put a traffic lights intersection at that Best Buy and Sobeys intersection.
Good, thanks.
We have the 2019 traffic signal hardware replacement, and this will go in conjunction with the traffic signal network timing and configuration to assist with Green Band's traffic flow and ease of flow along 44th Street, and some intersections on 50th Avenue, so Highway 16 and Highway 17. In preparation for next year's programs, we have the 2020 Street Improvement Program, and we have the 2020 Water and Sewer Main Replacement Program. I'll now turn it over to Mayor and Council for any questions on the programs that I've spoken about.
Thanks very much, James, for the update. Councilor, any questions or comments? I think, James, you covered off, you've added the additional information, which I appreciate in the briefing notes there as well, and I appreciate the map. I think that gives council some direction as to where we're headed with some of the work you're doing. If I can just bring up and mention the map, I noticed there's a couple of blue dots, a couple of interesting intersections, just wondering if you could comment on those. So, I don't know if you can bring up the map. It was the last slide of this presentation. Perfect. So I see blue dots at 44th and 62nd, which is also College. That will be the continuation of the light project, I imagine, that's ongoing.
So the 44th 62 Street intersection will be to add a southbound right turning bay, and that would be basically the Aztec corner, just to assist with traffic flow that wants to head, that is southbound, that wants to head west on 44th Street.
And then down south of the College on 59th, I believe it is, and 12th Street, will that be some turning lane improvements?
So both dots on the 12th Street alignment will be to add turning bays as well as increase the capacity for through traffic, just to improve safety at those intersections where we have people that are looking to go straight or turn off, that we aren't having those two lanes.
Okay, terrific, because I know that people often, those are both kind of tight intersections, and certainly not, south of the College, I know that people do access 12th.
Yes.
In both directions on the way for sure. So,
Another benefit of those is to push motorists, or not push motorists, but give motorists another avenue. Instead of shortcutting through existing neighborhoods, use 12th Street, use 75th Avenue, so that traffic flow is improved, that they do opt to use those routes instead of shortcutting through the existing neighborhoods.
that's right. And I guess the last one, if I may, then I'll take your question, Councilor. I'm glad to see that the water and sewer replacements have left the downtown per se of the commercial and moved to the residential. Hopefully we give the folks downtown a little bit of a break.
I agree.
Thank you. Councilman Rowe.
Just wondering, out of these projects, how many are actually carried over from 2018? Sorry, I probably could find it on my own.
No, thank you for your question. So if you look at page 1 of our update report, there's the table at a glance. So anything that begins with 18, it would be a carryover project.
Oh, okay, I got it. Thank you.
With that in mind,
66.
James.
Perfect.
67.
Then what does a 20 mean then? Expected completion in 2020?
So the ones that start with a 20, we will be completing those programs in 2019,
Oh,
but they are a 2020 program.
okay.
Those programs will be completed to get the design work done, so that we can procure contractor and consultant services in 2020 ahead of the schedule to get these done.
So the 2019 expense, is that only the amount that it's going to cost us to procure those people and get them set up, or is that the total expense?
That will be just for design, to procure a consultant to complete our design in preparation for 2020.
Perfect, thank you.
So in essence, we'll be ahead of the curve for a change rather than just getting into the curve this time of year.
Yes.
Hopefully, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. One of the ones on here that caught my attention that I hear an awful lot about is the signal network timing and coordination on the highways in the city. And it happened to me twice this weekend too, between 16th and 49th Ave there, or 50th Ave and 49th Ave, where you come around the corner from one and you're red on the next before you get anywhere, and it's back
Yes.
all over the place. So, does it take the whole big thing to make small changes to specific areas, or are we just rolling this out all at once? And when's the time frame on actually going after that project?
So there's two programs to deal with the traffic signals along 44th Street, and then a few on 50th Avenue. And so that would be the traffic signal network timing and configuration, as well as the traffic signal hardware replacement. So the first program, the timing and configuration, we will secure a consultant to come and review the existing hardware, review our traffic counting data, review the existing hardware that's at the intersections, and basically work with that data to how can we best manage the timings of those intersections. Green bands, that's where if you come in on the west side of town, if you are doing the speed limit, you can get green lights all the way through the city. And it's just how can we improve traffic flow on 44th Street with the infrastructure that we have, and then also make recommendations which will be constructed as part of the 2019 traffic signal hardware replacement program. The existing hardware on 44th Street, or most of the intersections within our city, are becoming outdated. They do coordinate with each other, very limited, whereas if you go to another municipality, Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, their systems talk with each other, they can forecast what's coming, they can adjust everything to what's happening in the field right now, where we are relying on snapshots of traffic data. So if it's a very busy day, when we take the data, our timings are associated with that. The next minute, it might be off. So we are trying to do the best with what we have right now.
I, like many residents of the city, are looking forward to this line item.
I think I can agree with the councillor. I think that certainly working with real live technology will hopefully give us a better idea going forward, because I appreciate the technology does change.
Yes.
And it's the technology we have that's in play today, but moving to a modern day technology, I think that's what we've heard very clearly from residents of our city. Why? And I often say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, James, we still may have bottlenecks at 49th and 50th, because we have one block and we've got
Yes.
a lot of traffic moving through there, but we can lessen those bottlenecks. We're going to make an improvement. Can we eliminate them completely? No, without an overpass, and I know we don't want to start that discussion on an underpass, but certainly the bottom line is there's challenges. I think as long as we can try to show some improvement, we're going in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Councilor Fenn.
James, I really like that layout. That's a great system that you've got set up there, as far as for the forecasting side. I had a couple of questions. One on the traffic signals. We had talked once upon a time, a couple of years ago, when this first came to council, about having double red lights. We were taking a look at Vision Zero and some of the extra safety side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a possibility to move into that way, where you've got only left-hand traffic turning, no other traffic going through?
Yeah.
At the start?
Thank you for your question. So that is something that we can look at when we do start our work with our consultant. We can bring our concerns forward. They can put that into their models, see how it works, what are other municipalities doing to improve intersection safety and motorist safety. So we can always bring those up and get that back into our consultants' hands for their recommendations.
Oh, that's great. Secondly would be on trails and some of the trail work that's being done. I don't know if this is just a suggestion. There is a bicycle club in Lloyd now. It's just started. And I know the gentleman that headed that up has got a lot of comments on trails and where things could be improved. And
Yep.
I would suggest maybe hooking up with Ben there at some point in time.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thanks, James. It's a great report. Briefs, tells you right to the point, is what we want to do.
Thank you.
And the map really helps, because we know where it's at. What to look. I just have one question. In your priority setting program, how you decide where should go what every year, I know over the years there's always been questions about Highway 17 North and 67th intersection. That's at Universal
Yes.
Corners. Is that on the list? Or what am I missing here? Not on this list, but like in your priority list?
Thank you for your question, Councilor Baker. So I'll have to take that back and discuss with my traffic grant.
It's no big deal, it's one I get asked about.
Yep. And so a lot of those intersections, we will go off of traffic counting data. So our traffic branch does on an annual basis perform traffic counting at our major intersections. And the need to improve those intersections to additional turn lanes, traffic lights, things of that nature come out of our traffic counting data.
I realize you're changing the speed limits around that intersection. But over the years, there's been a fair amount of accidents there over the year. I don't know what a fair amount means, but there's been accidents there. And there's been fatal accidents there. But there was big trucks we want to get them to use the ring road. And if they can't get across that highway, they're not going to go there. I mean, you get a big B train that's loaded and he wants to make the turn off 67th against traffic. You just sit there and watch them. But I just wondered if you might consider just looking at it for the next go round.
Yes,
Whatever.
absolutely. Yeah. I can work with our traffic branch.
It's not suggested I know anything about it. It's all I'm talking about is what I've kind of witnessed and been told about. So.
Yeah, I think we've all witnessed trying to go to the lake at that intersection, and it is busy. So I can review the data with our traffic branch as well as our roads and transportation operations group. And if there is a need for it in a future program, we can look at it for sure.
Sometimes it's got to be a little more than traffic because the big trucks don't move like pickup trucks.
Yes.
They're slower. Thank you very much.
James, one last question for myself. We've got the two projects working on the drainage channel improvements. You know, we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. Cold weather is hard on snow removal. How are the folks making out, the contractors working on those two projects? Do you see completion before spring runoff on the two drainage channel improvements and the East Storm Channel rehabilitation are both scheduled for Q1? And can you just give us a quick snapshot based on what you know today?
Yes.
Yes.
No, we are pushing our contractors that we have right now for both the Northwest, which is currently underway right now, to get the channel work that we have in these phases completed before spring melt. If we are there and spring melt starts, it's going to be a very ugly sight for everybody involved. So we are pushing our contractors, we are working with our contractors and our consultants that are on those programs to get this stuff done before we have the thaw.
Excellent. It's just the winter. It doesn't make it any easier for them. It would have been ideal if it was -10, and a little easier for the earthquake guys, but I'm sure they're persevering. But we see the snow removal out every day in the streets, but because that's slightly removed, I haven't been able to see how progress was. And it's important because, as you said, we're going to be in big trouble if we're not done by the time spring melt comes. And I don't know if it's early or not. It depends on which groundhog you report from. So we'll see. Lately, it hasn't reflected that. I guess we can hope for a change.
So an update on that one. So part of the Northwest Range, we have completed our 57th Street crossing. That one is completed and it is ready to go for our spring thaw. We have currently moved over to our 62nd Street and 50th Avenue crossing. There is 3 phases of that one, and we have started that one today, which should take us about a month to complete.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments for James? Councilor?
I just want to make a comment. I really appreciate how well versed you are in all this with the short time that you've been with the city. So.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, James.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thanks, James. And for council's information, I did ask James to prepare a map once we get a little closer to construction season, so that in 11 by 17, so that council will have that available. So that if people are saying, where is the city working? And we work through the communications people, so that would be terrific to ensure that the public are fully informed as to where the road construction is going to be this year and the work that's going to be done. Moving on to 5.2, city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To discuss the 2018 utility summary report of Cara De La Rosa and Ken Berger.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Good afternoon.
So before you is the utility report for the fourth quarter of 2018. This utility report summarizes the operations for landfill, curbside services, wastewater treatment, and water services. And I'd like to open the floor for questions.
Well, I know my favorite subject is the wastewater treatment plant, Karen.
For sure.
You know, your heart and mine. And I'll move to report page number 36 in the report. Thank you, up one, Della. There we go.
What page?
It's page 36 in our
You
package.
go to monthly lab data?
Yeah, monthly lab data. I think that's one that I think everyone around the table needs to fully understand, because people often ask us, why do we need a wastewater treatment plant? The data is well compassed here, and I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page understanding it, and to make sure I understand it, because Karen's the expert in this. I just read the numbers, but certainly we get measured by 4 different categories, correct? Today, Karen, basically, we've got our major, for Environment Canada's purposes, that they're chasing us down.
That is correct.
So the BODs, and I'll let Karen explain those, but the TSS is total suspended solids that are leaving our facility, the ammonia and the phosphate. And as you can see, occasionally and lately we hit the BODs, which is terrific, we passed, and TSS, but we have yet to address the 2 major issues of phosphates and ammonia coming out of our plant. And then I won't even get into acute lethality, but we haven't passed all those. And bottom line is, sometimes winter is more cooperative than summer. Other times you can see that in the summertime we were able to get the TSS down. And is there any explanation you can give more to that, Karen, about timing? I know we've done some work with cleaning the first lagoon. Is that helping us? Things like that.
BOD's TSS is more of a weather-related issue. So in the summertime, we have a lot of algae growth because of the warmer weather. So you would expect TSS and BODs to go up. However, in the wintertime, since algae has already died off, those numbers are we are able to achieve compliance in both those numbers. And as Your Worship has alluded to, phosphorus and ammonia, those are 2 parameters that currently the treatment process is not able to handle. So 12 months in the year, we are failing those parameters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm pretty sure we ask this question every year, but I don't remember the answer to it. So when we look at treated water consumption through the summer months, you know, we're talking about 313,000 cubic meters, but then when you look at the effluent on that side being closer to the 400,000 region. So we've got 300,000 we're sending out from the water treatment plant, from the water treatment plant, but going out of the wastewater treatment plant is a much higher number. Is that evidence of a lot of infiltration, like a significant amount of infiltration? Because you get your big rainstorms and things like that during those months. So I was curious if that is what's causing significantly more effluent during that time.
That is correct. That definitely affects the volume of the wastewater that we need to treat at the wastewater treatment plant. So when we have heavy rains, we still have a portion of the city that has both their storm and sanitary sewers combined. So that would definitely add more volume to the wastewater treatment plant.
And are those like maybe older areas of the city where water and sewer replacement programs are prioritized?
That is correct. And those, mostly on the north side of the city.
Okay. Thank you. I think that kind of explains it for me. The only other thing was And I don't recall if the ACE water line was turned on in terms of water consumption by the end of the year, but if it was, I don't see any kind of significant changes in the treated water consumption.
Thank you, Your Worship, Councilors. Yes, the ACE started taking water in late November. That was Kitskotty and Blackfoot. And there was a bit of a transition period there, but the significant impact on the city right now is not a whole lot. This chart that you have here represents city usage and ACE usage. I have a separate spreadsheet where I'm tracking the differences between those two. So when we do a water master update plans, we look at city's growth and not the growth outside the city.
Okay.
So it's important that we track the two differences. But this is showing both.
Consolidated.
It's consolidated, and you're right, there is not a whole lot of difference right now.
Okay, thank you.
My question was just in the regards to the differences, but Councilor Person, please continue.
And if I can just add more, I guess, to my answer to the infiltration issue. We do have a program coming up here in 2019. Engineering has purchased some flow meters, and so we are able to determine which areas have more infiltration than others. So these are some of the things that we will be addressing moving forward as we develop some of these programs under wastewater collection.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. My question is probably for Mr. Urban as well. So we've installed the majority or almost all of the Neptune meters.
Yes.
Around. And I know we had talked in the past about meters that have been circumvented, people that were seeing significant loss because of leakage they didn't know about, these types of things. I know it won't affect the consumption overall, but I wondered if you could maybe give us a bit of an update on the changeover, how that's gone, what you've seen as more efficiencies because of that system to date.
Would you like me to do that with my next report? Monthly update, or I can do it now? I'm doing another report right after this.
Right.
So.
I just wanted to bring it up just in consumption.
Sure.
It's on that table of consumption and usage, right? So.
Well, yes, so the system is in place now, and we're getting lots of reports out of the system to help with high consumption, zero consumption. So our billing staff has done leaps and bounds on how to handle all this data, and we're making good use of it. So we are calling people every day on due to high consumption or abnormal consumption. We just had an example. We had, of course, the cold weather. We had some frozen pipes in 3 properties. And we actually got hold of the owners before they knew that they had a burst pipe in their facilities.
That's the kind of stuff I was looking at.
So in some cases, we can save tens of thousands of dollars in damage, depending on what type of building it is. But yeah, it was kind of nice to get a hold of them before they even knew that they had a burst pipe, and they were losing a lot of water inside. So our staff are making calls, like I say, every day to help people out with leakage, continuous leakage or high consumption. And we're also using the program for zero consumption. Now it's identifying meters that are failing on us prematurely. And so it's helped us increase some of our revenues, just because on the old system, you would never know how, if a meter was dying out, and now the system is showing a clear picture, just like a bar graph. It just shows how the meters are slowly dying out. So we're targeting, those type of meters on an ongoing basis.
Well, I had a very nice couple of gentlemen come over and replace my meter. It's mine's over 20 years old now the other day, so thanks to your staff, because they were very cordial and good guys. But you can still call my wife and tell her our consumption's too high. I appreciate that.
It's true. Any other questions for Ken or Karen? Councilor Bitt.
Thank you. Well, while we're on this subject, well, you have heard, Ken, I realize it's not on report. During the initial stages and the ongoing installation of the new meters, there was a lot of conflict with some people over the readings, whether right or wrong or otherwise. Have we got those, to your best of your knowledge, all solved on one way or the other?
Yeah, a lot of conflicts was we were reading about 2,000 people counts every couple of weeks, And we were trying to transition those bills into a more common date instead of trying to send out a bill every 2 weeks. So during that transition, we were moving people's read dates to the middle of the month or the end of the month. So your bill was not always 60 days. It could have been 75 days or a little less than 60. So there was a lot of, confusion.
I only read 1,500 of them.
Yeah, okay, 1,500.
No, I'm kidding.
But you're right.
No, but, all I need to know is, in your mind, have we got that problem under control now and
Yes.
settled down? Because a lot of people ask, well, I know his worship got, and, we couldn't answer the question. You keep saying, go see this guy or go see that. But it became quite a nuisance. Not that it's a nuisance, but you're almost repeating yourself over and over and over again. And we're saying, we're getting it fixed, we're getting it fixed. And I haven't heard anything for a few months, but I was assuming that it's under control now. That's really, if that's what you've got it to, that's great.
Well, there was definitely the communication issue, when we started transitioning these accounts to, but, we were fielding between 50 to 100 phone calls during that time period a day, and now we hardly get one or two a week, maybe, if that. So that has died right now, for sure.
That's the important thing.
Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this is another question for Ken, actually. Just on the water audit side, I know you've done a lot of work on water audits in terms of making sure that there's no lost consumption. How has the system been doing as far as tracking to the total treated water consumption versus the total billed consumption? Have you been finding difficulties in there where there's still areas where water is going, I don't know, some sort of mystery where you don't know where it's going to?
I'll be starting on the 2018 water audit soon. We have to get data from a number of departments and all that. We are making progress. So the difference between what's treated from the water plant versus what we bill, that differential has shrunk in the last few years just because of the extra work we've been doing for changing our water meters. So that's a lot of non-revenue water that we've been losing just because the meters have not been registering water usage or it's under registering. And so we are closing that gap up. Now, there always will be a gap. We'll never get to 100% because you have, water break leaks, and there's also leakage that you can't control. So in the programming, depending on how many miles of pipe you have, there's always a certain amount of leakage is allowable. And we're at the point now that there's not a whole lot more that we can target directly to try to save the water losses. Engineering is doing a great job on identifying areas where they need to do water main replacements, and they work with our team as well. And that has definitely cut down on water losses. But I think the water meter stuff and the AMI project will help us pinpoint a few more areas where we're losing revenue. But for the most part, I think we've got a pretty good handle. I think we're still in the top 5% in North America for water loss.
Okay.
So I'm pretty proud of what we've accomplished in the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, congratulations on that. That's quite the figure. So that probably answers my next question, which is if there's a reasonableness threshold as far as water loss. You're saying you are exceeding whatever that threshold is even now. There may still be some that you can't always catch, but you're still exceeding whatever that reasonable threshold is.
Temco Cities runs for water loss runs around 25 to 40%.
Wow.
40% sounds pretty high, but it's amazing. I know some large cities are at 50%. But we're running around, I think last time I checked it was about 12%.
Okay, right on. Thank you.
If I can divert back to Karen again. The curbside diversification rates, I believe it's your second slide. Karen, is December correct that 1,900, it's the next slide, please,
Christmas trees.
Is that, yeah, it could be. Is that Christmas trees at 1,944 in December? That was, that one jumped out at me that was huge because that's, in comparison to 2017, we had a huge month, and maybe it might be more than we expected.
Doesn't add up.
No, actually, I thought of that too, but it's actually 2017. Yeah, so it's sort of a comparison. 2017 totals and then all of 2018, but just not sure. It's the last number in December.
I will have to check that, Your Worship. Because typically we don't get that much organics in December, so I'm thinking this might have been a typographical.
Just a number there, but it certainly indicates that we're saving 37% of our landfill by moving things away, and we're gaining, which is a compliment to your team. It's only 1.5% from last year, but every 1.5% adds to that value. If we can hopefully get folks to that 60-40, and is that a reasonable number? What are other communities? I know Saskatoon's been going through a heck of a fight on this whole organics and blue bin, but Edmonton is an example, or Calgary. Are we leading the pack, or are we behind them, or in the middle?
In Saskatchewan, we definitely are leading the pack. We're the first community in Saskatchewan that has implemented an organics collection program. Our program is being used by a lot of communities as basically as a template for the programs that we're trying to launch. Even bigger cities like Saskatoon, for example, have been touching base with us to see what we've learned in the program. In Alberta, there definitely are more mature programs in Alberta than there are in Saskatchewan. We're at par with a lot of municipalities that are of a similar size or slightly bigger. We definitely can do some more improvements, especially on the organics collection piece. In the last couple months here, between December and January, we have been finding a lot of contamination in our organics. So we are putting forward a lot more messaging to the public to just educate them a little bit more of what can be put into the organics and what can't. So.
Excellent. Any other questions of the administration? Well, thank you very much, Karen and Ken, for that. Great work on both sides, and I think you're up again. But thank you very much for the continuation of your work, because people see the water come and just expect it to arrive, the waste to leave, either in liquid or solid form, and you folks make that happen every day. So thank you very much. All right, moving on to 6.1. Back to the city manager. You're back up again, Karen.
So before you use the stormwater is the information report on the stormwater utility rate extension. In March of 2017, Council approved the implementation of the stormwater utility. The rates that were approved in March 2017 have expired in December. Administration will be putting forward a proposed bylaw amendment to extend the current rates in the next council meeting. The extension will be used to conduct a thorough review of the utility structure towards a more self-sustaining utility. We will also be using that extension to identify implementation efficiencies, and all of these reviews will be done in-house.
Questions or comments, Council? Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as this last rate ended on December 31st, we're still able to bill all the same for January and February when there was no rate in place? Or how does that work?
That might be a question for
Big city
clerk.
Just based on how the bylaw was reading, we would revert back to that current bylaw at this point. So it is a matter that we're trying to address fairly quickly, but it is within our means to do this.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Torson.
And then my other big question on this is, I understand within the information report is the suggestion that a review is being done of the utility models within the city. I'm just curious, like, where did the $13 per square meter come from?
That came from, basically what we did was we took the total amount of dollars that we needed to recover for the next 2 years to be able to fund our operating expenses, to fund our capital expenses, and then we looked at all of the properties within the city. So there's a couple of different utility structures, and based on the information that we have, the most efficient way of doing it at that time is actually to base it off of the lot size. So what we did was we took all of the sizes of properties within the city and looked at what we needed to recover for revenues.
Okay. So it's just kind of work backwards from how much money we need.
That is correct. And we try to create as less impact to residential customers. 94% of the customers who are actually being billed for stormwater utility will be within that $13 per month rate, so that would be the minimum rate.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Karen, maybe a financial question that you may not foresee, but do you know how many, I've had people say, well, I'm not interested in paying it. Do we have any idea how many people have refused to pay our stormwater levy?
Yes, we do, Your Worship. I just don't have the numbers right now, and I do have a spreadsheet of it. And based on the last that I've seen, I think it's less than 20 as of right now that didn't pay their stormwater utility bills for 2018.
So we're talking 0.01% of that, or 0.001%. Thank you. That's just good to know. I had had conversations with one or two people.
Yep.
They had raised it, so that's good to know.
And we continue to receive some of those comments, and we just address them one by one and get them forward.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So we're able to just extend this bylaw until the date of which we actually have that study done. Is that correct? Like when you bring it back to council?
So yeah, we'll be moving an amending bylaw forward at council, and we'll basically just be removing the expiration date.
Oh,
As you'll see in the next bylaw, that the effective date is still there, but there was no December, so it was effective January. So
okay.
it's a bit of it's a learning chance for administration. Sure, when you're asking bylaws, we likely will put December 31st expiration date still
Okay,
forward.
so then that amendment will come to us, and that'll need 3 readings as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Councilor Dorsey.
Just to be sure I understand, so when this comes back to council, this is going to be more so a bridge of these current rates until an internal review is done of the entire utility model to make sure we've got the right rates, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's what
Okay, well,
It would really be, this will be the rate until we amend the bylaw.
absolutely, Councilor, that's exactly right. The rate that we see today, if that's approved by council, over the next 2 meetings, will be that rate.
Sorry again. So this is quite a lengthy bylaw, right? So just that will be the only detail that's changed is that one thing will be taken out. That will be the only difference? Is the date?
Yeah,
Okay.
it will just be changing the Schedule B.
Okay.
Correct?
Schedule B, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be the exact same. We'll just be omitting December 31st, 2018 moving forward. And there'll be a minor change inside the bylaw as well, I believe, around the monthly billing, which Mr. Urban will speak to in a couple of minutes, but we
Okay.
just want to make sure that the bylaw is ready for monthly.
Perfect. Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Gary.
Thank you.
We can let you go on that one. Back to the city manager for 6.2.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll ask Kevin Urban to come forward and discuss water services, utility, and monthly billing updates.
Welcome back, Kevin.
Thank you, Your Worship, Councilors. So yeah, the report you have before you is an information report on our monthly billing update, or our utility billing update, sorry. So it was like 2 years ago, I presented to you the AMI project, about the benefits and how we should move forward with that project. And I want to thank each and every one of you for approving that project, and now we've got it done. The next question I think was posed to me is when we're going to move to monthly billing. Well, I do now have an answer for that, and we've done a lot of work in the background as of late, and as of March 31st, we are prepared to move forward with our monthly billing. Obviously, there's going to be lots of benefits, but to answer Mr. Baker's question earlier, there is going to be one more transition on our billing system. So what we didn't know is we were going to do is move all our accounts to be read on the same day of each month. So right now, half the CB is read in the middle of the month, the other half is read at the end of the month. So when we thought, well, if we're going to read everybody at the same time, this is the time to make that transition when we go to monthly billing. So everybody was read on Friday, or half the city was read on Friday, and their next bill then will come out March 31st, which will be about a month and a half, and all their rates will be prorated for a month and a half, and then from there on, they'll be going to monthly billing. The other half of the city is read at the end of this month, and their first month bill will also come out on March 31st. So what we're trying to do is save manpower time to do one bill a month, and we do the whole city at the same time. We had initially intended to do 2 bills, but we're just going to do everybody at the same time, and we've tested the system, and it appears it's going to work that way.
Yep.
Councillor.
So just what you mentioned in that rollout is that some of the people will be getting the same 30, or will be getting a 30-day bill period, and the others will be getting 45-day period. Is it possible to do a rollout where one gets a 15-day, or would that not be cost effective to do? My only concern is you're going to get backlash from someone who said, hey, I thought they would move to monthly billing, my bill is still just as high as it always was.
Yes.
Or somewhere around there.
So the bill that is coming out, there'll be an e-bills will be going out tomorrow, and there'll be paper bills going out next week, and we have an insert in there to explain those particular bills only. And then at the end of the month, there'll be a separate insert explaining how their bill is going to work. So we're trying to address that right up front, that, hey, yes, we understand we're going to transition to monthly billing, but your next bill is going to be a month and a half. It's going to go from 2 to a month and a half to 1 month.
Okay, so I guess when you say it like that, they're really going from 60 down to 45,
Yes.
the other one's going down to 30. So they'll notice right away that it theoretically should be lower for everyone when you do it. So it's probably not an issue of 15 days versus 45. So I think I've figured that one out myself then.
The
Good.
second bill that comes.
Yeah.
I think go ahead.
The other thing I was going to ask about that is just on the city's website side. So I know some of the functionality at one point we were looking for in a website is whether or not you can access data as a user in terms of your consumption or anything like that. Does that exist yet?
That's a customer portal that we were looking at for 2019. I think IT's workload was overwhelmed for 2019, so we're looking at possibly 2020.
Okay.
And that'll be a customer portal where, yes, the customer should be able to log in, pay their water bill, their taxes, and at the same time see their local water usage.
Right.
So we're still planning for 2020 on that project.
Right.
But if nothing is available now on the website, but if people are concerned about the usage, they can feel free to call the billing department for that.
Yeah, because I wonder if you're doing that, if the technology exists to send alerts to cell phones or something like that for abnormal data or abnormal water usage or things like that.
We have some of that technology right now, but we just got the AMI system fully set up, and we're just trying to figure out all the data and the reports, and that will be a feature that will be set up, yes.
Awesome. Well, if there's one thing I think we've learned on council is you don't want to do too many IT things at once, so we will take your direction on when the best time of doing it on that, because we've run into some problems. I had one more question on this, and this is just possibly for Denise. How much do we think this is going to do from a cash flow perspective in terms of moving cash that otherwise would have been sitting in accounts receivables that will now be sitting in the bank? Because theoretically, you're changing your cash flow in general because you're changing your payment terms and how often you bill. So is there going to be a significant difference, or are we not thinking it's going to be huge?
We haven't done research on that.
Okay. Because the basic math, which isn't always right, is you take your number of days sales difference and you divide by 360, or you divide your sales by 365, multiply it by the days difference, and that's theoretically how much cash flow you've improved on in that period. But it's not always an exact science. That's theoretical.
I thought it was cut and dried with the calcs. black or white, or red and black?
We live in a world of estimates.
Okay.
You're thinking of the wrong people.
Oh, okay.
Too much information.
Yeah.
So the other thing to note too with the glass going to monthly billing, and we'll have to make an amendment to our existing bylaw. The existing bylaw has a rate of, or has a consumption value of 60 cubic meters per billing period. So that billing period was based on 2 months. Now we're going to 1 month. We're going to change that 60 to 30 cubic meters. And that 30 cubic meters is a trigger where we have an escalating rate increase. If you hit 3 cubes or more, you'll pay that higher rate. So that's the only amendment that we need to make for this current change for going to Y, monthly to monthly.
Your worship, actually, I thought it would cost us more. Because number one, we're gonna send out twice as many bills, and they all got a postage stamp. And somebody's gotta prepare them. So we get twice as many bills, so all this technical information, this is what I get, and it tells me exactly what's going on. But won't there be a cost to us?
Okay, you want to address that?
Yes.
What's the interest rate at .001 or whatever it is?
So there is going to be double the bills because we're going to monthly billing, and that's been budgeted for. One of the cost savings measures we have seen is because we're processing more bills at one time, our printer has given us better rates for printing. Administration is looking at going to e-billing in the near future. We don't have a specific date set, but we're looking at going to e-billing. And that is going to potentially save us about $120,000 or more a year. But there's going to be some more discussions on that, how we're going to implement that. But we are looking seriously going to e-billing.
I think that will be left to the customer's preference if people provide, I would think, from that perspective.
There are people that don't have computers.
That's absolutely right, and I think by all means we realize, I think administration is fully aware of that, Councillor, and I'm sure we'll hear back from the community, but there are people that prefer to have everything by computer and don't want to go to the mailbox. So I think by that, having that technology will give us the opportunity to give our ratepayers, taxpayers, and utility users the ability to choose. And if they want it coming by electronic means, I think we'd be more than glad to get rid of the stamps. And the other one, I guess, that can allude to a little bit of potential reduction in bad debt, because now we're billing 30 days rather than 60 days. And the city may not get stuck with as many water bills as occasionally we've had.
Time is of the essence, right? So the longer you wait between, you realize somebody's not paying, it's much easier to get on top of these things quicker if it's only 30 days behind the gate.
Councillor Torres?
I was just going to say there's like a rule of thumb number that for every 15 days sooner that you get your billing done, there's something like an 80% likelihood increase of receiving payment. So that's the other rule of thumb that comes with cash flow on these things in terms of reducing your likelihood of bad debt. Because you got a cheaper bill, it's easier to afford, you don't have to scrounge as much money together to do it. So, and it's coming to you quicker, you know it's consistent, it should be about the same amount every month. So I think it's great. I've been rah on monthly billing since day one. So thank you for the presentation. Looking forward to this coming back to us. And I think that's it. Thanks.
Any other questions on this side?
Yeah, just to follow up, we are doing, Ken mentioned there's a minor adjustment to this bylaw, but we are doing an overhaul of the entire bylaw, which I believe we set January 1, 2020 as our goal to bring out a new water bylaw for council. As you said, there'll be a minor change needed to roll this out. There'll be a major overhaul coming to that bylaw for the goal at the end of the year.
So this will just be an amendment then as well?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Which will require 3 readings. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Fagan?
Hey, I'm a big fan as well of automation, and I think you've done a great job, Ken, doing all the research and getting us to this stage where it's at. So hopefully this little meld with finance and the building side of things all works very good. But I think it'll be excellent once our citizens can go online and troubleshoot for themselves. It just adds a nice little taste there, so job well done.
Any chance that we're going to be able to host the Saskatchewan Alberta Water and Wastewater Association and premiere the AMI system and talk about the big improvements coming to the wastewater treatment plant?
I'm not sure if we'll host anything, because those are pretty big events, but we have discussed about doing presentations at these conferences, for sure. We've been asked by our vendors to present. We'd just like to get more comfortable with the data that we have and get used to our system before we go, but yes, that is definitely in the works.
Okay. Well, we do have 1,100 rooms for hotels, so we can host a pretty good convention. We'll have to do a little work on that side of it too. Indeed. Any other questions for Ken? Thank you very much, Ken. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to the agenda, inquiries from the media, but it looks a little lonely back there. So we have no media today. And the city manager has advised me that we have no need to meet afterwards. So for a change, I'll look for direction from council for adjournment. Councilor Buckingham. And all in favor? Oh, I guess I should give a second. Councilor Torres. All in favor? Carried. I won't even ask. That was unanimous. Thanks, everybody.